Okay, the reason I started this channel was to help young photographers, and by young I don't mean age. I mean, just starting out. You can be any age and do this. It's a great hobby and it's a great career for anybody that wants to put the time and effort into it. But I did start this to help. So yeah, if you don't agree with something I say, that's fine. I'd love to hear your input, but be nice. I've been doing this for 40 plus years as a full-time career. It's fed my family and raised my child on photography. So I know a little something, and I'm more than happy to share and to help. So I'm going to give opinions on equipment and other things, I'm sure, and have some rants, but the majority of the videos I'm pushing towards just giving you a little bit of insight into what I've done and what's worked for me, and how I made it this many years, earning a living off of this. And when I started out, it was 1982. I started photography in 79, but I started working it in 82. And, back in the day, it's easier. It was easier back in the day because it was film and it was money, it was investment, not only in equipment, but in film and processing. And that's why there wasn't as many as there is today. I mean, absolutely everybody's a photographer because they have an iPhone or a smartphone. So it's really tough in this business to make out a living. And you do have to set yourself apart if you want to sustain and keep going. You have to have talent because literally everybody's great at photography now because of the cameras, the accessibility of cameras and what they can do. It takes very little to be a good photographer. It takes a great deal to be a great photographer. And I understand that some people want to be daylight photographers, and that's fantastic. Learning how to use the light that's available to you is a talent in itself. But if you want to go on to make a living, a full-time living, and always have work, you've got to learn how to use lights. And you can't just say, I'm sorry, Mr. Client, we can't shoot today because it's raining or it's not sunny or it's, and you go into a venue and, well, I'm not used to these lights, or it's too dark in here, or I don't have a white ceiling, I can't shoot. You have to learn how to use your equipment. Which brings me to this video. The biggest secret that I was ever taught way back when, and it's true today, no matter what kind of equipment you have or what you do or what you shoot, the biggest piece of advice that I ever got was know your gear. And there's a scientific reason for this. Not only for the obvious, you should know what the heck you're using, your tools, you should know how to use them. But our brains are on two hemispheres. One's an analytical hemisphere and the other is a creative. They don't work together. No matter what you think or how intelligent you are, or how many times you hear, I'm a multitasker, the brain doesn't work that way. And photography is a big reveal of this, because I don't know if you were ever to shoot and you had to change something in the menu system, and you know how some of the camera systems and their menu systems are just mind-boggling, but you're searching and searching for this thing that you have to change, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter, what it is you have to change, but you're searching through a menu system and you immediately go to analytical. And this can happen with lighting, it could happen with the equipment, it can happen with anything. If you don't know your equipment, you force yourself out of the creative side and go to the analytical side. Now, for some, this may not mean much because, there's some photographers that are creative shooters, and there's other photographers that are technical shooters. I've been a technical shooter for a long time. I know lighting, I know my equipment, I know what it can do, and I need to be technically perfect. And the sad part is, you know, the technical shooters always want to be like the creative shooters, and the creative shooters always want to be like the technical shooters. You go into this rut of saying, oh my gosh, I'm in a rut, I can't be creative. Like, I can never be creative. But I can be a technical shooter, and I can put out exactly what I need to put out. I'm trying to be a creative shooter now. And it's teaching an old dog new tricks. But if there's one thing I can enforce, and one thing I can tell you on this whole channel, and the most important lesson I can ever teach you, is know your equipment inside and out. There was a photographer that I sat with, and when I started out with a company that was, they were massive. It was a massive photography company, and it was a small town massive. But when I tell you they were a powerhouse, they were a powerhouse. They had contracts that most photographers would only dream of. But when you started out with this company, you were in a dark room, and the reason you were there, and I was there for almost a year, the owner always said, if you don't know this side of it, what needs to come out, what the final print is, you'll never be able to shoot it. And he was right. And then when I finally was able to get out and start shooting, I'll never forget it. I wore a nice shirt, a pair of pants, dress pants, to a job, and I was immediately kicked off the job before it even started, because I was second shooting for the owner. And the reason why is because I was in a suit and tie, and it was a casual kind of thing, but he insisted on a suit and tie. Then the next job, I got a suit and a tie, and his first comment was, "Did you get that off the rack?" Because it wasn't a custom suit. Anyway, that was him. He wanted the first impressions with every client to be perfect, and obviously it worked for him because he was such a huge success in the industry, and did this for many, many, many years, decades. Anyway, getting back to the gentleman I sat with, which he was an old-time photographer and probably one of the best I've ever seen. And it was a discussion with many photographers, and we're there to pick his brain more or less, because he was such a success in the industry. He was a big name. It doesn't matter who it was. It's the lesson that he taught us was more important than who he was. But during our conversations and asking him questions, we were instructed anyone randomly to shout out camera settings. ISO 800. 500 shutter speed, f-stop of 2.8. And before we were even finished, he would hand us his camera, and the camera was set to that. And it was like he never even looked at the camera. He was just talking to us, and this was just in his lap, and he would set it as we were saying it and hand us the camera, and every time it would be correct because he knew his equipment that well. And the reason he did this, and the lesson he taught us, was knowing your equipment doesn't allow you to think about that side of it, that technical side. You can concentrate on the shoot and what you're shooting, and be creative instead of switching to the analytical side of your brain and taking yourself out of the creative mode. And it's true to this day. I don't know if you ever saw, there's some iPhone photographers that outshoot me with their eyes closed. They're absolutely amazing. And I'm sure you've seen them. There's just, boy, there's some great shooters out there that don't do this for a living. They just do it for fun. I mean, there's Instagrammers that shoot their own selfies that, set their camera up on a wall and push the little timer, and they shoot absolutely beautiful shots because they know themselves, and they're not worried about the technical side of it. They're just worried about the creative image. And it works. It's because you don't have any technical worries. Unfortunately, as a pro photographer, you need to know the technical side. You need to know your lighting conditions, and you need to be ready for everything and anything. So if you don't have to worry about that technical side, you can always be in the creative side of the brain. Now, some will argue that, the photographers that use lighting and they have to technically set up lighting, and that they're not using the analytical side of their brain because they know their equipment, they know what it can do. They're creatively setting up their lighting. They're setting it up so it looks creative on the subject. So it looks creative on whether it's a person or an object, or it doesn't matter. They don't need to think about that lighting technically. They need to think about it creatively. And that's the difference. So I know, like, jumping from camera system to camera system, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get a new camera, you should spend, weeks upon weeks with it to learn every in and out of that camera. No ifs, ands, or buts. You should know that camera inside and out. When I got the Fuji system and then I got the X Pro 3, I had that camera in my hand 24/7. I put it on the nightstand next to my bed, and I woke up with that in my hand. It's that important. I needed to know that camera inside and out, and I needed to know every lens and what it was capable of and what its limits were, because I don't want to think about it. I want to be able to pick up that camera and set it to where I need to set it, and if I need to do a little tweak after the first shot, I do it. But other than that, I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to have to search through a menu to change one thing. I know there's function buttons that you can set for what you normally set, and whatever you have to do, but you better know everything about that camera at all times so you can concentrate on shooting. It's that important. There's one other thing that I want to explain, and I shoot everything. I shoot big catalogs to entertainment to a kid's birthday party. I've gone from a stadium shoot with Elton John to a 6-year-old's birthday party in 2 hours, and I'm just as happy on each area. It doesn't matter, because when you're in this industry, there's way too much competition. iPhones are competition for us now, believe it or not. Most of the time, you'll never need to shoot a birthday party anymore because everybody says, oh, I have an iPhone. Why am I going to hire a photographer? I just have old clients that I've been with for so many years that I still get this kind of work. And I can't imagine as a young photographer how hard it is with, literally 20 photographers buying a camera last week and putting their business cards out. It's tough. It's a really hard industry now. That's why you have to know your equipment. You have to be unique. You have to have your own thing. Otherwise, in between you and somebody else, it's just going to be the lowest price that wins. That's it. There's no, if you don't have that something special, which was the reason for my last video that, people complained about. I'm not putting photographers down. I'm saying be unique, be yourself, create your own style so people gravitate towards you. So you have something different that other photographers don't have. You need it in today. You can't make it in this business without it. It's point blank. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm a technical shooter. I do catalog work and I do it damn well. I'm not a $15,000 a day shooter, but I create my living off of shooting good commercial work. And I shoot everything else in between. I shoot parties. I'm filling up with holiday parties now. I don't care what I'm shooting. I just want to shoot. I want to make a living. I want to enjoy it while I'm doing it. So, it's funny thing is I saw a photographer, and it was a second to me, as a matter of fact. And we're shooting a big group shot. There's probably 25 people in it. And it was just snap, snap, snap for him. And I'm like, wait. The biggest thing is there's 25 people in that group photo. And it was like a nothing to him because he was young. And he hasn't been doing this too long. And I'm glad to take people under my wing and teach. But to me, since 1982, that 25 people means 25 potential clients. So unless everybody in that entire group has a personal connection with you and is enjoying themselves during this stupid group shot, you're losing a potential 25 clients. So yeah, those pictures, if it's going in the newspaper and their eyes are closed or they're looking off or they have a weird face on, they're not going to hire you. And you can say, oh, it's not my fault, it's a big group shot. But to them, you're the photographer that took it, it's your fault. So even the littlest mundane group shot is so important. The grip and grins and all that stuff is important because, to do what you want to do, like the creative photography and go out and have fun with it and shoot the fun stuff. And if you want to do this for a living, you got to do the mundane stuff and make it great and make it an experience for everybody, whether it's a group shot or a one-on-one. But anyway, going off track, and I apologize for that. Today I just want to let you know that I promise you, I guarantee you, know your equipment, get to know every inch of that camera, every menu setting. If someone gives you a flashcard and says, where is this setting on that menu, you know it instantly and you can go to it in seconds. Do that. Do that so this thing your camera is as easy to use as your iPhone. Just click. And I promise you, your creative side will come out. Your images will be better because it's going to put you in the zone of creative shooting versus your analytical brain trying to figure out how to use the camera. And I don't care if you've had this camera for 5 years. There's a lot of people that don't know everything about their camera because they set it on one thing and that's it. And they don't care anything else. But knowing that camera inside and out, like I'm telling you, and not being worried at any situation or where the sun's coming from or what setting you have to be at, it's going to be spectacular for you. It's going to be a godsend. So try it. Spend the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks with your camera, getting to know it. And then take a look at your work and let me know what you think. I have a feeling it's going to be a really enlightening and a joyous experience for you because it really does work. I'll never forget that photographer that I sat with. He taught us a lot, and that was the most important thing he ever taught us. So please take this and run with it and see what you can do with it. And hopefully the next video I can give you a little bit more insight. But thanks for listening to me. I'm sorry this took so long and I rambled so much. But I really wanted to put this out there because it does work and it will mean a lot to your photography in the end. Thank you for listening.